The night was colder than usual, the kind of chill that seeped into bones and made even the busiest city street feel abandoned. Officer Emily Carter, one of the youngest and most dedicated members of the police force, walked her beat with steady steps. The rhythmic tap of her boots echoed against the empty pavement, her flashlight beams sweeping across shop windows and parked cars. She had seen hundreds of nights like this, quiet, uneventful, predictable. But then, from the stillness, a sound broke through. It was faint at first, so soft she thought she had imagined it, a high-pitched whimper, fragile yet piercing enough to stop her in her tracks. Emily turned her head, listening closely. There was again, closer this time. Her pulse quickened, instinct sharpening. She followed the sound the mouth of a narrow alley, where the glow of a flickering street lamp barely touched the darkness. Out of the shadows stumbled a small figure, a puppy. Its fur was tangled and filthy, patches of mud clinging to its legs. Its ribs showed through its thin body, a clear sign it hadn't eaten in days. But what struck Emily the most were its eyes, wide, glistening with tears, and filled with something deeper than fear. It was a look of pleading, as if the tiny creature was begging her for something more than food or shelter. The puppy hesitated for only a moment before it bolted forward. Emily instinctively bent down, catching the trembling body as it hurled itself into her arms. The pup pressed its head against her chest, whimpering, its rapid heartbeat pounding against her like a frantic drum. She cradled it gently, her brows furrowed. "This isn't just a lost stray," she murmured under her breath. Something about the way it clung to her felt different, desperate, purposeful. Then, just as suddenly, the puppy wriggled free. It dropped onto the pavement, turned toward the alley, and barked. Once, twice, urgent. It took a few steps forward, then stopped and looked back at her, barking again, as if it was calling her, begging her to follow. Emily straightened, her hand brushing against her holster. She had seen enough strange things on duty to know when her gut was speaking, and right now it was screaming. This wasn't random. The puppy wasn't just wandering. It was leading her somewhere. With a deep breath, she clicked on her flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness. "All right, little one," she whispered. "Show me." The puppy barked again, then darted deeper into the alley. Emily followed, her footsteps quick but cautious. The silence of the night wrapped around her, every shadow feeling heavier than the last. Her heart thudded in her chest, a mix of adrenaline and dread. She had no idea that by following this fragile, desperate creature, she was stepping into a story that would uncover hidden pain, expose unthinkable truths, and leave everyone who heard it in tears. The night air outside was thick with the pulse of flashing sirens and the crackle of radios. But down in the basement, Emily Carter felt time had slowed to a crawl. The suspect, Marlowe, had been dragged out screaming obscenities and riddles about secrets and the mutt, his voice carried away by the paramedics. Officers swarmed the crumbling old house, their boots heavy against the dust-choked floorboards, their words clipped and professional. But Emily could hear nothing except the faint whimper of the puppy pressed against her shin, its trembling body drawing strength from her touch. She knelt beside it again, her flashlight beam dancing over the remains tied to the chair. The sight of the bones gnawed at her. Whoever this had been, they hadn't died quickly. Their life had been drained here, abandoned, forgotten. Yet the puppy, little and fragile as it was, seemed tethered to them by some unspoken bond. Emily whispered, "You came here for me, didn't you? You wanted someone to see." The pup's ears twitched at the sound of her voice. It stood, padded softly to the edge of the skeletal figure, and sat down, tail curled against its paws. The motion wasn't random. It was reverent, as though paying respect. Emily's chest constricted. Her training told her to catalog the scene, mark the evidence. But another part of her, the part that had grown up clutching the worn leash of her childhood dog, Max, felt something deeper. A dog didn't find its way to a police officer by chance. This was more than an accident. Her radio crackled. "Carter's status?" She clicked it. "Suspect secured, basement scene located. But I got reason to believe there's more here than we thought. I'm investigating further." Before anyone could argue, the puppy barked sharply and ran to a narrow hallway Emily hadn't noticed before. The officers upstairs were occupied securing the main rooms, taping off windows, recording initial statements from neighbors. Nobody paid attention when Emily eased open the warped door and slipped inside. The hallway was damp, lined with crumbling plaster that flaked under her touch. Her boots echoed in the silence. At the far end was a stairwell, steep, uneven, leading down. The pup's claws clicked against the steps as it bounded forward, pausing to glance back at her, its dark eyes pleading for her to follow. Emily gritted her teeth, her instincts screaming wait for a backup, but her gut, that unexplainable compass she trusted even more than procedure, told her hesitation meant missing the truth. She descended. The air grew colder with each step, the smell of mildew mingling with something metallic, faint but distinct, blood. Her flashlight swept across the rough stone walls until it landed on symbols carved deep into the rock. Circles intersected by jagged lines, runes she didn't recognize but that seemed deliberate, purposeful. The puppy growled low in its throat. At the bottom of the stairs, the tunnel opened into a chamber. Emily froze. Cages, rusty, bent, some collapsed, others still intact. Inside were scraps of cloth, gnawed bones, old collars. Her stomach twisted. This had been no ordinary hideout. Someone had been keeping animals down here, maybe worse. She crouched, brushing her glove across one of the collars. The nameplate was tarnished but still legible. Rex. Another. Daisy. She counted 4 in total. The puppy whimpered behind her, pawing at a collapsed cage as though recognizing it. Emily swallowed hard. Whoever had been running this place hadn't just been squatting in a forgotten house. They'd been breeding cruelty. And the skeletal figure upstairs? Perhaps not the first victim. She was still crouched when a sound cut through the silence. A shuffle. Then another. Emily whipped her flashlight toward the far corner. For an instant, she swore she saw movement. Someone slipping out of sight. She raised her weapon, voice sharp. Police, show yourself. The chamber answered only with the drip of water. The puppy barked furiously, dashing toward the corner. Emily followed, her light slicing across the walls. There, nearly hidden behind a sagging plank, was another opening, a passage. Her throat went dry. How deep did this place go? The dog darted inside before she could stop it. Emily cursed under her breath and pushed through. The tunnel bent sharply. The air thicker here. Damp earth brushed her shoulders as the walls closed in. She pressed forward, flashlight jittering with each step, until the space widened again into another chamber. And that's where she found it. A journal. It lay atop a rotting table, the leather cover cracked and stiff. Beside it sat a lantern, long extinguished, and a set of rusty chains bolted into the wall. Emily holstered her weapon, pulling on her gloves before lifting the book. The pages crackled as she opened it, her light catching the jagged handwriting within. Her heart skipped as she read the first line. They will never let me leave, but Buddy always finds a way. He knows where the others are buried. Emily froze. Buddy, the name on the puppy's tag. Her pulse raced as she flipped through page after page. The entries told of a man trapped in a house, taken in by people who used the tunnels for their twisted gatherings. He'd been kept alive for years, sustained only by scraps, forced to watch what they did to the animals. His only companion had been a German shepherd named Buddy, who managed to slip in and out through cracks and collapsed passages, always returning with scraps of food, sometimes even bringing help in the form of pups. The words blurred as Emily realized. The skeletal remains upstairs could very well be the man who had written this. His story had ended here, buried in darkness. But the bloodline of Buddy had survived, long enough for one of his descendants to find her. The puppy pawed at her leg, whining softly, as if urging her to keep reading. She did. One passage chilled her to the bone. They meet on the new moon. Masks of bone, hands painted red. They say the animals are sacrifices, but I know they want more. They whisper about the day they'll take one of us. Buddy growls when they come close. I think they fear him. Emily snapped the book shut, bile rising in her throat. This wasn't just cruelty. This was a cult. Suddenly the radio on her shoulder crackled to life, startling her. Carter, where are you? We're clearing the second floor. She hesitated, eyes flicking to the tunnel behind her. If she reported this, the scene would be swarmed. Evidence cataloged, the puppy taken into custody. It was protocol. But every instinct screamed the cult wasn't finished, that they might even return. If she wanted the truth, she had to act before the evidence vanished into bureaucracy. The puppy barked sharply again, pulling her back. It nosed at a section of wall, dirt shifting beneath its paws. Emily shone her light closer, and her stomach dropped. Scratched into the wall was a final message, jagged and desperate. Don't let them open the gate. Don't trust the ones in uniform. Emily staggered back. In uniform, the echo of Marlowe's grin outside replayed in her mind. His words, it belongs to them. Who was them? And how many were still out there? The puppy barked louder, frantic now. Emily's pulse thundered. She grabbed a journal, tucking it into her jacket, and scooped up the trembling pup. Footsteps, real this time, coming from the tunnel. She spun, gun raised, flashlight cutting through the dark. Shadows moved, too many, advancing silently. The radio on her shoulder hissed again with static, voices distorted. Emily's breath caught. For the first time in her career, she wondered if she had just stepped into something far larger, far darker than law enforcement could contain. She tightened her grip on the pup and whispered, "I've got you, buddy. I won't let them have you." And as the figures emerged from the darkness, their faces hidden by masks of bone, Emily Carter realized the night had only just begun. The silence broke under the weight of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing to the damp tunnel like a metronome of dread. Emily steadied her weapon, every nerve in her body screaming danger. The puppy squirmed in her arms, growling low, its tiny teeth bared as though it understood the enormity of the moment. The first figure emerged into her flashlight's beam. A tall man, face obscured by a grotesque mask carved from animal bone, hollow eyes cut into the skull-like facade. Behind him, two more appeared, then another, until half a dozen masked figures blocked the exit. Their robes dragged against the dirt floor, stitched together from mismatched fabrics that seemed ritualistic, purposeful. Emily's voice was sharp, unwavering, though her heart thundered. "Police, drop whatever you're carrying, and put your hands where I can see them." They didn't flinch, didn't move, only stared. Then the tallest one spoke, voice muffled through the mask, each word deliberate and chilling. "The dog chooses. The dog leads. And you are not meant to follow." Emily's finger tensed on the trigger. One more step, and I'll shoot. The figures didn't advance. Instead, one of them extended a hand toward her, palm open, as though beckoning the puppy from her arms. The pup snarled, snapping at the air, its tiny body trembling with feral defiance. The leader tilted his head, studying the animal. "It remembers," he said. "The bloodline of the guardian, always interfering." Emily didn't wait. She fired, 1, 2 shots into ceiling. The blast shattered stone, showering dust and debris across the tunnel. The figures flinched, some stepping back, but none retreated fully. Their silence, their calm, unnerved her more than any gunfight she'd ever faced. She used the moment to push forward, keeping her weapon trained as she edged toward the passage. The puppy barked, its high-pitched cries echoing down the chamber like a call to arms. And then, almost imperceptibly, the masked figures parted, creating a path. Emily froze. Her training told her it was a trap, a manipulation, but their stillness felt almost ceremonial. They were waiting for her decision, for her next move. Her throat was dry, her breath shallow, but she didn't lower her weapon. She pressed forward, stepping into the gap they had created. The puppy barked louder, its body rigid, as though resisting the direction she was being forced to take. When she passed through, the figures closed in behind her, sealing the way back. The tunnel narrowed, the air damp and suffocating. Her flashlight flickered against crude markings gouged into the walls, symbols repeating the same motif. Circles broken by jagged lines, arrows pointing downward, crude depictions of gates, each one etched with furious desperation. At the end of the tunnel, the space widened again into a cavernous chamber. Torches burned in rusted sconces along the walls, their flames casting jagged shadows across the stone. In the center of the room stood an altar, an old wooden table darkened by stains she didn't want to identify. Around it, more figures waited, their bone masks gleaming in the firelight. Emily's stomach churned, bile rising in her throat. She recognized the layout instantly, not from training manuals, but from crime scene photographs and unsolved cases. This wasn't new. This wasn't isolated. This cult had been operating for years, maybe decades. The leader approached the altar, raising his arms. His voice carried through the chamber, resonant, rehearsed. The guardian has returned. The bloodline survives. The balance must be restored. Emily tightened her grip on her weapon. Not another word. This ends tonight. Her voice echoed, but the cult didn't flinch. Instead, a chant began, low at first, then rising, a rhythmic hum that reverberated through her bones. The puppy howled, thrashing in her arms, desperate to escape. Emily crouched, setting it down. The pup bolted toward the altar, barking furiously, circling the table with defiance far larger than its small body. The cultists froze, their chant faltering, some stepping back in visible fear. The leader snarled beneath his mask, voice sharp. It remembers. Even young, it knows its purpose. Emily sees a hesitation, moving toward the altar. Her gun tracked the leader's chest as she shouted, "Who's behind this? Who built these tunnels? Who are you working for?" The leader tilted his head, calm, unbothered. "Not for, Officer Carter. We are of them. We are the keepers. You cannot stop what began before your badge, before your laws." The words dripped with conviction, and Emily realized with horror. This wasn't just a fringe group. They believed themselves protectors of something far older, something buried beneath the city. The puppy barked again, claws scraping at the stone near the altar. Emily's flashlight beam caught scratches there, fresh ones, letters carved hastily, hidden by shadow. She leaned closer, reading them aloud. Gate, beneath, river. Her pulse spiked. This wasn't the end of the tunnels. There was more, something deeper, hidden under the city itself. The leader's voice cut through the silence. "And now you know, but knowing is not leaving." He lunged. Emily fired. The shot tore through his shoulder, spinning him back. Chaos erupted. Cultists surged forward, their chants breaking into guttural cries. Emily ducked. Firing again, the muzzle flash illuminating masks lunging from every direction. She grabbed the puppy mid-sprint, clutching it tight as she barreled toward the far wall. Her shoulder slammed into stone and gave way. The wall crumbled, revealing a hidden passage collapsing with age. She stumbled inside, dirt raining down, the roar of cultists behind her. The tunnel was narrower, suffocating, forcing her to crawl with the puppy tucked close. Her flashlight flickered, shadows swallowing the walls as rocks groaned overhead. Behind her, the cultists' shouts grew distant, but not gone. They were following. Emily pushed harder, her knees scraping stone, her breath ragged. Finally, the passage widened again, opening into a chamber half flooded with black water. Rusted ladders clung to the walls, leading upward into darkness. She hesitated only a second before slinging the pup across her back, gripping the ladder with one hand, pistol in the other. She climbed, each rung slick with condensation, her muscles screaming. Voices echoed below, closer now. The cult was relentless. Emily's lungs burned, her arms trembling, but she pushed upward until the ladder ended at a grate. She shoved with all her weight. It resisted, rusted into place, then finally burst free. She hauled herself out, gasping, onto asphalt. She blinked, stunned. She was outside. A dark alley, trash bins lining the walls, neon from a bar sign buzzing nearby. The city moved on as though nothing beneath it existed. The puppy whimpered against her chest, exhausted but alive. Emily clutched it close, her eyes darting to the grate below. No movement yet, but she knew they weren't gone. They would come. She staggered to her feet, blood dripping from a gash in her arm, her uniform torn and filthy. She reached for her radio, static hissing through the line. "Dispatch, this is Carter. I need immediate backup." "Location?" She rattled off the cross streets, her voice trembling with urgency. Static answered her. No confirmation. Her chest tightened. The warning on the wall echoed in her mind. Don't trust the ones in uniform. She stared at the radio, suddenly unsure if call for help had just signed her death warrant. The puppy licked her chin, grounding her in the moment. Its eyes, bright and fierce despite its exhaustion, seemed to say, "Trust me, not them." Emily swallowed hard, making her choice. She turned away from the street, away from a flashing neon, and disappeared into the shadows of the city, alone, with only the pup as her guide. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Emily's boots hit the slick pavement with the weight of exhaustion and urgency. Her breath came in ragged bursts, missing the cool night air as she hurried through the labyrinth of alleys. The puppy nestled against her chest whimpered softly, but its eyes stayed sharp, alert, ears twitching at every echo. Every corner felt like a trap, every shadow a lurking figure in bone mask. She wanted to trust the radio, to believe dispatch would send backup, but the carved warning on the tunnel wall gnawed at her mind. Don't trust the ones in uniform. She replayed it again and again, each time feeling the sting of betrayal cut deeper. If the cult had roots in the city itself and law enforcement, then calling for help was nothing more than painting a target on her back. She ducked behind a dumpster, steadying her breath. From her vantage, she could see the faint glow of headlights sweeping across the end of the alley. A patrol car rolled past, the familiar insignia on the door. Relief surged for a moment, until she caught sight of the driver. His eyes flicked toward the alley, lingering just a second too long. His face blank, unblinking. Her gut twisted. The car slowed. Stopped. Emily's pulse spiked. She clutched the puppy tighter, pressing into the shadows. The driver's door opened with deliberate slowness, the kind of calm that didn't belong to someone answering a distress call. The officer who stepped out looked ordinary, mid-40s, square jaw, uniform crisp, but his movements betrayed him. Too smooth, too certain. He scanned the alley without calling out, his hand resting near his holster, but not in the jittery readiness of a real cop responding to danger. This was something else, something practiced. The puppy growled low, fur bristling. Emily didn't wait. She slipped deeper into the maze of alleys, moving fast but silent, years of training guiding her steps. Behind her, she heard the officer's voice, calm, controlled, almost conversational. "Officer Carter, you don't need to run. We've been waiting for you." Her heart hammered, but she kept moving. His voice carried, steady, unhurried, as though he knew escape was impossible. "You've seen enough now. You understand. And soon you'll accept." Emily darted into a side street, her mind racing. If even one officer was compromised, how many more? The tunnels, the ritual chamber, all connected. This wasn't a cult hiding in the shadows. This was a network, deeply embedded in the city she had sworn to protect. She broke into the open street, neon spilling from storefronts, late-night pedestrians oblivious to the war unfolding beneath their feet. For a moment, she let the crowd swallow her, blending into the hum of normalcy. The officer didn't follow openly, but she knew he wasn't far. The puppy squirmed in her arms, whimpering, then tugging at her sleeve with its tiny teeth, pulling toward the west. Emily hesitated. "What is it, boy?" It barked once, sharp, insistent. Then again, twisting against her hold until she set it down. The pup darted toward an old brick building, its windows dark, its sign faded with years of neglect. Millhaven Library, closed. Emily frowned, torn between logic and instinct. But the puppy didn't hesitate. It scratched at the door, whining, barking, demanding entry. With a quick glance around, Emily drew her lockpick from her belt, her hand steady despite her racing heart. The tumblers clicked, the door creaked, and they slipped inside. The library smelled of dust and decay, shelves draped in cobwebs, silence thick as a shroud. Her flashlight beam swept across rows of forgotten books, broken tables, a staircase winding upward into shadow. The puppy padded forward confidently, as though it knew exactly where to go. Emily followed, the sound of her boots muffled against the worn carpet. She felt the weight of eyes on her, though the library seemed empty. The pup led her to the far corner, to a section of wall where the wallpaper peeled and mold crept across plaster. It pawed at the baseboard, whining, then barking. Emily crouched, running her hand along the wall until she found it. A seam, a faint draft seeping through. A hidden door. Her pulse quickened as she pressed, and the panel gave way, swinging inward with a groan. A staircase descended into blackness. She swallowed hard. Of course. Another tunnel. The puppy barked once, leaping onto the first step. Emily adjusted her grip on her weapon, flashlight in the other hand, and followed. The door swung shut behind them, sealing them in darkness. The stairwell spiraled downward, deeper than she expected, the air growing colder, damper. Her beam caught glimpses of murals etched into the walls, figures with animal heads, gates guarded by wolves, rivers flowing into voids. Each image felt older than the city itself. At the bottom, the passage opened into another chamber, this one lined with books, scrolls, and artifacts stacked in chaotic heaps. Old maps, cracked letter tomes, jars filled with substances she couldn't identify. It was an archive, a record of something ancient. Emily's breath caught as she lifted one of the books. The leather cover was brittle, but the language inside, archaic, yet some words stood out. Guardian, vessel, bloodline, gate. The puppy growled suddenly, ears pricked. Emily spun, gun raised. A figure stepped from the shadows, hands raised slowly. Not masked, not robed. A woman, older, hair silver, eyes sharp with both fear and knowledge. "You shouldn't be here," the woman said softly. Emily's weapon didn't waver. "Then why are you?" The woman glanced at the puppy, her expression shifting. Almost relief. "So it's true," the guardian returned. Emily's stomach nodded. "Who are you?" The woman exhaled, lowering herself into a chair. "Once, I was like you, a police officer, until I saw too much, until I understood what lay beneath Millhaven." Emily froze. Her mind reeled. "You were a cop?" The woman nodded. "Decades ago. I left when I realized a rot went deep and I could fight. But I stayed close, kept the record safe, waiting." Her eyes softened as they fell on the pup. "For this." Emily's grip on her gun loosened slightly. "What do you know about them? About the tunnels, the masks, the gates?" The woman's face hardened. "They call themselves keepers. They believe they protect the balance between this world and something beyond. But protection turned to worship, and worship to corruption. They bled the city for years, officer. Sacrifices, disappearances, all to feed the gate beneath the river." Emily's throat tightened. She had read the reports, the unsolved missing persons cases that haunted her department. Too many, too frequent. And now the pieces fit. "And the dog?" Emily asked. "The guardian," the woman whispered. "Always reborn when the balance tips too far. Always drawn to those who will fight." She met Emily's gaze. "It chose you." The weight of her words crushed Emily's chest. She looked down at the puppy, its tiny form pressing against her boot, eyes fierce and unyielding. Before she could respond, a crash echoed above, the library doors bursting open. Voices followed low, chanting, descending. The woman's face paled. "They've found you." Emily grabbed the nearest lantern, shoving it into the woman's hands. "Is there another way out?" The woman nodded, pointing to a narrow tunnel at the back of the chamber. "But it won't stay hidden long. You must move." The puppy barked, already darting toward the passage. Emily backed toward it, weapon raised as shadows fell across the stairwell. Bone masks gleamed in torchlight as the cult descended, their chants vibrating through the stone. Her heart pounded. She didn't have time to think, only to act. She ducked into the tunnel, the puppy sprinting ahead, the woman close behind. The walls closed in, the air stifling as they ran, the sound of pursuit growing louder. Stone gave way to wood, then to open air. They burst into another alley, the night sky a welcome sight. But the relief was brief. Across the street, more masked figures emerged, blocking the exit. Emily raised her weapon, teeth gritted. She had no backup, no reinforcements. Only herself, a stranger, and a puppy barely old enough to survive. But as the cult advanced, the pup stepped forward, growling, its tiny body shaking with ferocity. And in that instant, Emily believed. Believed in the Guardian, in the warning carved into stone, in the impossible fight ahead. Her finger tightened on the trigger. This ends tonight. The night erupted in gunfire, howls, and shadows. The tunnels whispered. Even after all the fights, all the blood, all the unanswered questions, Emily Carter felt the earth itself pressing in on her lungs as she and Buddy moved through the darkness. Her flashlight flickered against the uneven walls, revealing marks, hand-carved etchings that spiraled downward like some secret language left by generations of desperate hands. Buddy stayed close, fur bristling, his nose twitching as he picked up scents no human could. Every so often he glanced back at her, his amber eyes glowing in the half-light as if asking, "Are you ready for what waits?" Emily wasn't sure she was. The last battle had nearly broken her. The firefight, the betrayal from within her own department, the haunting discovery of bodies hidden in the house above, each had chipped away at her resolve. And yet, here she was, following a dog she had met by chance. A dog who somehow seemed to know every turn of this labyrinth better than she ever could. "Where are you taking me, Buddy?" she whispered. The German shepherd barked once, sharp, insistent, then padded forward again, nails clicking against damp stone. Emily's radio was silent. The last thing she had heard from her team was a burst of static before the signal died. Whether they'd been cut off intentionally, or worse, she couldn't say. All she knew was that she was alone now, save for the animal guiding her deeper into the abyss. They turned a corner, and the air grew colder. Emily's flashlight beam caught on something metallic. An old gate, rusted and heavy, bolted shut with a chain. Buddy growled low, hackles raised, pacing before it. Emily holstered her gun and yanked on the chain. It clanged, loud enough to echo through the tunnel, making her heart jump. She braced her shoulder against the gate and pushed. Nothing. She tried again, harder, until her breath came ragged. Then Buddy did something unexpected. He sat. He looked at her. And then, almost deliberately, he pressed his paw against a particular stone in the wall beside the gate. Emily frowned. "No way." She leaned closer. The stone was looser than the others, worn smooth in a way that suggested it had been touched countless times before. She shoved her fingers against it, pressing hard. With a deep grinding noise, the chain loosened on its own, slithering down the bars like a snake. Emily froze. Buddy barked once more, urging her on. The gate creaked open. Behind it, the tunnel widened into a cavern. So vast her flashlight couldn't find the end of it. The smell hit her first. Old earth, mildew, but also something chemical, acrid, like gasoline. She stepped carefully, scanning the space. And then she saw them. Rows of cages. Some empty. Some with scraps of fabric. Bones, the remnants of lives long gone. And in the farthest cages, movement. Her breath caught. Children. No. Teenagers, maybe. Eyes wide. Faces pale. Clutching the bars as if they weren't sure she was real. "Oh my God!" Emily's gun lowered slightly. "It's okay. I'm here. You're safe now." Buddy barked, racing to the first cage, pressing his nose through the bars, whining as the children reached trembling hands toward him. Their whispers came in a flood, too fast, too broken for Emily to catch. But one word kept surfacing. Trapped. Emily's chest burned. How many years had this been going on? How many families had been torn apart by this syndicate? Her voice wavered. "I'll get you out. I swear it." But before she could move, a new sound filled the cavern. Slow, measured, applause. It echoed against the stone walls, chilling her blood. From the shadows stepped a figure. Tall, dressed in a tailored suit that looked impossibly clean compared to the filth around him. His hair slicked back, his eyes glinting like knives under the weak light. "Well done, Officer Carter," he said smoothly. His voice carried authority, calm, the kind that came from years of knowing you were always in control. "You've gone further than any of your colleagues ever managed. Truly impressive." Emily snapped her gun up instantly. "Step out into the light. Hands where I can see them." The man chuckled softly, obliging her with a casual stroll forward. Guns, cages, children. It's all so predictable, isn't it? You think you've uncovered the truth. But this is just the surface. Buddy growled, planting himself between Emily and the stranger, his teeth bared. The man's eyes flicked to the dog, and his smile widened. Ah, the faithful guardian. How poetic. Do you even realize, officer, that without him you'd still be wandering in circles above? That animal knows more than you ever will. Emily's finger tightened on the trigger. Who are you? I am the reason your city still functions. The reason chaos hasn't swallowed every street. You may call me Calder. Calder. The name sent a flicker of recognition through Emily's mind. Rumors whispered in precinct backrooms, files redacted in case reports, cases that vanished into silence whenever his name surfaced. You're running this syndicate, she said coldly. Running. Calder tilted his head, as though amused by her naivety. No, Officer Carter. I am the syndicate. I am the spine on which it stands. Emily's voice was steady. Then, tonight, the spine breaks. Calder only smiled, as if she were a child speaking bravely against the dark. Perhaps, but you'll find breaking me is complicated. The cavern suddenly lit up, not from her flashlight, but from floodlights mounted high above, clicking on one by one. The space was vast enough to fit a cathedral, and now she saw the full scope of it. Dozens of cages, stacks of crates, weapons glinting under tarps, an underground empire, and dozens of armed men stepping out from the shadows. Emily's heart lurched. Her grip on the gun never faltered, but she knew this was a death trap. Buddy barked furiously, circling her, as if ready to fight them all himself. Calder spread his arms wide, as if presenting a stage. So, Officer Carter, what will you do? Save the children? Fight the men? Or protect your loyal companion here? You can't do all three. Emily's pulse hammered. She looked at the terrified faces behind the bars, at the gunmen raising their rifles, at Buddy bristling at her side. Her decision had come fast. And deep in her chest, she already knew, whatever happened tonight, she couldn't let the syndicate win. Not while those children were watching. Not while Buddy still trusted her. The air hung heavy with the weight of imminent violence. Emily Carter's gun remained trained on Calder, though her eyes flicked rapidly, measuring the distance between herself, the cages, and the advancing gunmen. There were too many. Even with perfect aim, she couldn't take them all down before they overwhelmed her. Buddy's growl rumbled low, deep enough to vibrate through her boots. He moved in a protective circle, ready to spring at the first sign of aggression. The children's whispers rose in a chorus of fear, their small fingers curling tighter around the rusted bars of their prisons. Emily's heart thudded. Think, Carter. Think. Put the gun down, officer, Calder said, his voice calm as if he were coaxing a child to obey. There's no winning here. You've done your part. You've uncovered our little secret. Impressive, yes, but the story ends here. Emily's lips tightened. The story ends when I say it ends. She squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the cavern like lightning. Calder's smile froze as the bullet slammed into the floodlight above him, plunging half the space back into shadow. The sudden darkness threw the gunmen into disarray, their focus breaking for a crucial second. Buddy launched himself forward. He hit the nearest guard with the force of a storm, teeth sinking into the man's arm as his rifle clattered to the ground. Emily sprinted sideways, ducking behind a crate as bullets sprayed. Sparks flew as they ricocheted off the stone walls, the deafening echoes shaking dust loose from the ceiling. She returned fire. One man dropped. Another staggered, clutching his shoulder. But there were still too many. Buddy, here, she shouted. The German shepherd released his grip, bounding back to her side. His fur was streaked with blood, someone else's, not his. His eyes locked on hers, alive with urgency. Emily tore open a crate beside her. Ammunition, explosives, a cache meant to arm an army. Her chest tightened. If she could ignite it, but the children, her gaze darted to the cages. Some of the captives were crying, others too frozen with shock to move. If she blew the crates, they'd all die. Damn it, she hissed, firing another round that took a man down at the knee. Calder's voice rang out over the chaos, maddeningly composed. Do you see, Officer Carter? You can't win. Every choice you make, I've already accounted for. Emily ducked as bullets tore through the crate above her head. Her breath was ragged, her mind racing. There has to be a way. There has to be something he didn't plan for. Buddy barked sharply, jerking his head toward the far wall. Emily followed his gaze. A control panel, metal rusted, wires exposed. It was connected to the cages. Her pulse spiked. The locks. "Cover me, boy," she whispered. She sprinted. Buddy stayed behind only long enough to hurl himself at another guard, dragging the man screaming to the ground. Emily reached the panel, slammed the butt of her gun against it, and ripped the wires free. Sparks flew, lighting her face in a harsh glow. She crossed 2 wires, then another. A loud clang echoed through the cavern. The cages opened. The children surged forward, some stumbling, some crying, but all pouring out like water breaking through a dam. For a moment, the guards froze in shock. That hesitation cost them. Emily fired again, aiming not to kill but to scatter them, buying the children precious seconds to run. "Go! Run!" Emily shouted, waving frantically toward the tunnel. The cavern became chaos. Children sprinted. Guards scrambled. Buddy tore through anyone who dared to stand in their way. Calder remained perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back, watching it all with eerie calm. When the last child had fled into the darkness, Emily ducked behind another crate, reloading. Buddy limped back to her side, panting but still ready to fight. "You've lost your leverage," she snarled across the room. Calder tilted his head, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "Lost? Oh, Officer Carter, I've barely begun." He snapped his fingers. A hidden door slid open at the far side of the cavern. From it, a new group of men entered. Not guards this time, but soldiers, clad in tactical gear, rifles raised with ruthless precision. Emily's stomach dropped. This isn't just a syndicate. It's an army. The soldiers fanned out, forming a perimeter. Emily's chances dwindled from slim to none. Her gun felt suddenly small in her hands. Buddy growled, his fur bristling, ready to defend her until the very end. Emily's voice was hoarse but steady. "Why children, Calder? Why them?" For the first time, his smile faltered. His eyes darkened, voice dropping low. "Because children grow. Because fear planted young grows roots too deep to tear out. They become tools, soldiers loyal beyond question. The world may call me a monster, but I call it efficiency." The words turned Emily's stomach. "You're sick. I am necessary." "Not anymore." With that, Emily raised her gun. But before she could fire, Calder's soldiers opened up. Bullets screamed through the air. Emily dove, dragging Buddy down with her, as crates exploded behind them. Shrapnel burned her cheek. She rolled, came up firing. 2 soldiers fell. A third took cover. Her body screamed in protest, but adrenaline kept her moving. She had to survive. She had to bring Calder down, even if it meant dying here. A grenade clattered near her feet. Her heart seized. Buddy lunged, teeth grabbing the grenade. He sprinted, faster than Emily could shout, faster than she could stop him. He vanished into the shadows of the cavern, the explosive clenched in his jaws. "No!" Emily's scream ripped for her throat. An eruption thundered through the chamber. Stone split. Fire roared. Dust swallowed everything. "Buddy!" Emily coughed, choking on smoke. Through the haze, she saw him. The German shepherd battered, bloodied, limping, but alive. His amber eyes locked on hers. Relief surged through her chest. But Calder was gone. The dust cleared just enough to show a tunnel collapse behind him, sealing his escape. Emily staggered to her feet, lungs burning, gun trembling in her grip. The soldiers were retreating with him, vanishing into the labyrinth, their shadows dissolving into the dark. She had freed the children. She had survived. But Calder had slipped through her fingers. Buddy pressed against her leg, his body trembling with exhaustion. Emily sank to her knees, wrapping her arms around him, burying her face in his fur as tears burned her eyes. "We're not done," she whispered. "Not until this ends. Not until every child is safe. I promise you, Buddy, I promise." The cavern groaned under the weight of the blast. Cracks split across the ceiling, stone raining down. Emily knew they couldn't stay here. She stood, steadying Buddy with one arm, and together they limped toward the tunnel where the children had fled. Behind them, the cavern collapsed, burying Calder's empire under a mountain of stone. But deep inside, Emily knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The night air outside the collapsed cavern hit Emily like a wave of cold freedom. She staggered into a forest clearing, lungs aching, clothes torn, Buddy leaning heavily against her side. Ahead of them, the children huddled together, wide-eyed and trembling. Some cried openly, while others stared at her with a kind of stunned silence that cut deeper than any wound. "Are we safe?" One of the smallest voices whispered. Emily swallowed hard, scanning the trees. For now, the truth was more complicated. Calder had escaped. His network, his soldiers, his empire, none of it was gone, only buried. She knew men like him didn't die easily. He would rebuild, resurface, and strike back with even greater force. But the children didn't need that truth right now. They needed hope. She crouched down, forcing her breath to steady, and smiled at the girl who had spoken. "Yes, you're safe with me. I promise." Buddy lay beside her, chest heaving, blood matting his fur. Emily stroked his neck, feeling the tremor of his body beneath her hand. He'd saved them all again. Her heart clenched at the thought of how close she'd come to losing him. "Buddy," she whispered, "you're stronger than any soldier I've ever met." The German shepherd blinked up at her, tail thumping once, slow but determined. She rose to her feet, drawing the children closer. "We have to move. There'll be more men searching these woods. Stick together. Stay quiet." The group began their trek through the forest, Emily leading, Buddy limping at her side. The darkness pressed in, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. She kept her gun ready, ears tuned to the faintest sound. Hours passed before the glow of dawn painted the horizon. They emerged onto a dirt road, where the faint hum of an approaching vehicle made Emily tense. She signaled the children to duck into the underbrush and crouched low, gun aimed. A beat-up van appeared, its headlights cutting weakly through the mist. Emily braced for a fight, until she saw the markings on the side. Local police. Relief swept through her chest, so suddenly it almost dropped her to her knees. She waved her arms, stepping into the road. The van screeched to a halt. "Officer Carter?" A familiar voice called. Emily blinked. "Chief Reynolds?" The older man climbed out, disbelief written all over his weathered face. "My God, we thought you were dead. Where have you?" His words cut off as the children began filing out of the trees, one by one, like shadows stepping into the light. His jaw dropped. Holy, what in God's name happened? Emily lowered her gun, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. "I'll explain everything. But first, they need food, water, safety." Reynolds didn't hesitate. He barked orders into his radio, summoning every available unit. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived, officers rushing to gather the children, offering blankets, water bottles, comfort. Emily watched it all with a hollow kind of satisfaction. For the first time in days, the children weren't trapped. They weren't crying in cages. They were free. But Calder still walked free, too. As medics moved in to tend to the children, one kneeled beside Buddy. She examined his wounds carefully, frowning. He needs proper treatment. He's lost a lot of blood. Emily's chest tightened. She knelt beside him, stroking his head. "Hold on, boy. Just a little longer." Buddy gave a faint wag of his tail, eyes closing as if to say he trusted her completely. Emily rose, jaw set. "Reynolds, I need to make a call." The chief studied her, then nodded. "You're not letting this go, are you?" "Would you?" she asked. His silence was answer enough. She found herself inside one of the patrol cars. Phone pressed to her ear. When the line clicked, she spoke quickly. "This is Officer Emily Carter. I need federal involvement. Calder escaped, and he won't stop. I have proof, witnesses, survivors." The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. "We'll send a task force immediately. Hold your position." She ended the call, staring out at the rising sun. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Later that day, after the children were transported to safety and Buddy was taken to a veterinary clinic, Emily found herself sitting in a sterile hospital room, finally forced to stop moving. A nurse had bandaged the cuts along her arms, cleaned the burns on her face. But the wounds inside, the weight of what she'd seen, wouldn't heal so easily. The door creaked open. Chief Reynolds stepped in, carrying a file. He set it on the table between them. "What's this?" she asked. "Everything we have on Calder. Every sighting, every whisper, every lead we never had the resources to chase." Emily opened the file. Photos, maps, names. It was a web stretching across countries, continents. Calder wasn't just a local criminal. He was part of something global. Reynolds' voice was grave. "This isn't just your fight anymore. The feds are involved now. You'll have backup." "But Emily," he hesitated. "Men like Calder, they don't go down clean. You know that, don't you?" Emily's eyes burned as she closed the file. "I don't care how messy it gets. He stole their childhoods. He tried to turn innocence into weapons. That ends." Her phone buzzed. A message from the vet. "Buddy is stable. He's a fighter." Tears pricked her eyes, relief mixing with determination. She typed back quickly. "Thank you. Don't let him out of your sight." That night, sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw cages. She heard the children's cries. She smelled the damp stone of the cavern. But beneath it all was Buddy's steady presence, his loyalty a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was light. The next morning, Emily walked into the clinic. Buddy lifted his head from the blanket, ears pricking. His tail thumped weakly. She knelt beside him, pressing her forehead to his. "We're not done, boy," she whispered. "We got work to do." Buddy licked her cheek, sealing the vow. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing had happened. But Emily knew better. Somewhere out there, Calder was already rebuilding, and she was going to find him, no matter the cost.